All right, here we are at yet another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Hello, Bill. Hey, everybody.
Here we are, podcast number 450 today. 450. We're
Nice
getting
round
closer
number.
to our 500th podcast.
Yeah, Bill, we're halfway to 900.
There you go. Here we are. The title for today's podcast is Avoiding Rejection in Creative Real Estate in Today's Economy. Here's a description. They never teach you what to do when a seller looks you straight in the eye and says, I don't think this is going to work for me. That sick feeling in your stomach then takes over all your motivation and the deal spins out of control most of the time. What do you think, Peter?
Oh, I've never experienced that, Bill.
Yeah.
No, never. No.
What do you do when this happens? Fortunately, I have had this happen to me thousands of times over my 3 decades of talking to sellers. The trick is to turn the deal around at this point and put it back on track. And I don't mean today I will teach you how to be clever with sellers. Today's episode is all about shifting your philosophy of talking to sellers to completely change your approach to listening to sellers. And once you hear today's talk, you too will be able to transform conversation ending objections into deal making opportunities. But I warn you, this may be too simple for you. And the beauty of this approach is it requires zero manipulation and zero uncomfortable closing techniques that piss people off. Listen now before you get another deal-killing objection. What do you think, Peter?
Oh, it sounds hopeful, Bill.
Sounds hopeful.
You sound smart today.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Don't put me on that pedestal. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So the only thing I have to say is wherever you're watching us or listening to us, please like us and subscribe to us so you know when we're on the air. We record every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. The podcast hits the platforms on Monday. So if you want to join our conversation and ask questions, you can go to any either Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube and just type in Creative REI Replay or Flipping Houses for Rookies, and you will find us. Okay, and also in the description, I put a link to our new newsletter. The newsletter link is creativerealestatetheology.com/subscribe. So it's the if you want to go get our free newsletter, which is a weekly newsletter that comes out every Saturday morning, that I will be talking about creative real estate and creative real estate strategies and deal structuring and all that kind of stuff weekly in the newsletter, and it's for free. You can find that at creativerealestatetheology.com/subscribe. Okay, so that's the end of my housekeeping today. And here we go, Peter. Are you ready?
Ready. The house is clean.
All right. All right. Just to be clear, I will not be talking about some magical deal closing method or a magical type of framework to use and close millions of dollars for real estate. This is not a trick. This is not manipulation. This is not a way for you to say something to a seller and all of a sudden they get hypnotized and they do what you want. This is not how this works. There are much other basic things that we need to talk about, but if you're here for that because you're like looking to trick someone or you think that you're not saying the right words or something, I've never been able to teach anybody that because it's not how it really works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I've done this for years, maybe a couple of decades. I mean, at least 3 that I know of. And the fruit of my labor couldn't buy me lunch and a tank of gas. And what I'm talking about is trying to teach other people how to do this with the words, the right sentences. I've written scripts. I've done role playing. I've developed AI bots that you can go practice my scripts on. I've done all this craziness, right?
That's right, you did.
And I can't. Is there a light behind me, like a beam of light? Do you see that, or is it just me?
No, I do. It's not.
Okay.
I didn't notice it until you brought it up, though.
Yeah.
It's not.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is developing scripts and drilling and grilling people on those scripts and trying to get them to memorize them and do this and do that. Uh, that whole concept that I've done for a couple of decades couldn't buy me lunch or a tank of gas right now.
Mm, yeah.
It just people have come and gone, and they get frustrated, and and I'm not sure. Well, I am sure as of today, but I'm not sure, you know, why people inject their own ideas on something that's proven, right?
Mm.
All right, so you might think it's odd that I would even admit this in public, huh? Most people like me wouldn't admit something that. What do you think about that, Peter?
Well, it's the truth. I mean,
Yeah,
people are experiencing what you're going to say one way or the other and not understanding what's happening. I'm on the other side always with you, trying to put all the pieces together and see the best way to do things. So it's real.
right. Well, truth be known, I'm tired of watching good people trying real hard to do deals and lose out on killer deals just because a couple basics are not being applied.
Mm.
Right? They get all the way to the end. You know, there's so many sayings. When I was writing the podcast, it's like, where should I put this? Should I put that?
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I know is, like your success is on the other side of the fear. So if your fear is
Hmm.
5 feet away from you, then your success is 5 feet 1 inch away from you,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, there's always the story about the guy that was in the early 1800s that had a machine digging for gold and for gold, and he, that whole story, and he was up there for years, and he went bankrupt trying to find the gold, find the gold, find the gold, digging, 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 and he went down into the city and he went into a bar and he sold everything for like a dime on a dollar, right? And the new guy didn't dig anything for like, I don't know, a month or two, and he just went and did his research. He hired some guy to look for the veins in the ground, and they moved the machine that he was digging like one direction, like 6 inches, and struck gold and made millions.
Hmm.
It's like that's what most people are like. I mean, it's a whole parable that is in a lot of books. So, all right. So, some of the stuff I'm going to cover today, you might think uh, but are you doing it? That's another thing, right? Getting actual results,
Mm.
right? I'm on 3 different coaching groups, and I hear people say things, but when I ask them, are they doing them, right?
Oh.
It's kind of like being on a diet, right? Knowing that sugar and fast food and overeating without exercise makes you thin, but you still go out and have that cocktail, right? Before dinner or after dinner or
Oh.
with your friends on Friday night. You go out
Hmm.
have that beer or that glass of wine that's full of sugar, right?
Yeah. I
and
know.
and
Oh, I'm
you'll
not eating any sugar. I'm not having
yeah
any pastries. Doesn't mention the wine and the beer, huh?
yeah or bread, you know,
No.
or you'll go out to dinner and you'll end up not so much eating fast food, but it is fast food because the kitchen's cooking it quickly, right? It's not homemade in your kitchen where you know all the ingredients are. And oh yeah, by the way, all their food is prepared and stored in a restaurant prior to you getting there by hours. So you don't know what you're getting, right?
It's sitting around. Yep.
And you never seem to find time to exercise, right? it's kind of cute because my own mind plays tricks on me. You think if you eat a day or two, if you eat good for a day or two, you're like you must have lost weight, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's not long enough, right?
No.
And you do all these things, and you still complain that you can't seem to get what you want, right?
Hmm.
It's an interesting thing. It's like you think you're doing something, and you're doing it wrong. One of the most valuable um, bad things that I have ever learned is the magnitude of predict that people don't have. Like
Oh.
the proper predict on something. Like,
Mm.
oh, I'm going to do 3 to 5 houses a month, and I'm going to make this much money.
Mm.
And they're brand new. They've never even started the course, never even started my coaching, or never even started creative area replay.
Never
And
made
they're
a
gonna,
phone call.
yeah, and that's right. Never made a phone call, right? So they don't understand the predictable magnitude that you have to do. And I'm going to tell you, Peter, 450 podcasts. They're at least an hour long. And I could tell you over and over and over and over and over again, and you'll agree with me. Even you will agree with me, but you won't do anything about it. Real estate is not a physical it's not about property, it's not about money, it's not about documents. It's about you and your philosophy. Creative real estate is made successful between your two ears. And some people buy into that philosophy and drink, and eat the Kool-Aid. I mean, drink the Kool-Aid and eat the cookies and just blindly go into it and just do what they're told, and they are highly successful. And then other people inject their own ideas and what they think and how they do it, and they're trying to remember everything, and all these tricks they think they need to know, and it's really not that way. It's just very, very simple. And I hope by the end of today's podcast you'll be able to see how simple it could actually be, because real estate, creative real estate, is that thing that some gurus talk about in books and on videos and on tapes, that you could just make money out of thin air. It's like you could just reach up into the air and you could pull it back, and you can have as much or as little as you want. And I know that that's not a believable thing, especially for you right now, because we've been going through some stuff and it's just not happening, right? We're not getting as many deals as we want, right?
Right.
And the beauty of it is this whole concept of creative real estate is you don't have to be a smooth talker like most think I am. Most think that I do very well. Go, oh, he's a salesman. He's a smooth talker. He's got slick back hair, and all that kind of shit. I've heard it all, right? And you don't need deep pockets or even manipulation. You don't need zero. You need zero pressure tactics. You don't need to pressure anybody. How many calls have you been on with me, Peter, that I pressured somebody?
Not zero.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But you
And
can't force somebody to sell their house to you. How do you do
right,
that?
right. I
Here's a
don't.
pen. Sign the paper. Oh
Well,
yeah.
you can do that. You can do that. You can actually do that. I know people that do that. But guess what? Their fall off rate from signing contracts to closing is tremendous.
Mm-hmm. And the
Right.
lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, they don't have lawsuits because they end up just backing out and a wheeze away. That's when you start getting ghosted. If you're getting ghosted a lot, that means you're trying to shove a deal down somebody's throat. It's all about you, not about them.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the wrong side of the table,
Mm.
right? If you have too many people ghosting you, then you're not going to do what I'm going to talk about today. And I got to tell you, Peter, I've been trying to teach this for 10 years, and I actually nailed it. It took me all day to write this podcast.
Wow.
All day to write this podcast because I wanted to get it right.
Mm.
And it was probably one of the most valuable things I sorted out in my own mind on how I could teach this to you guys. And it's simple. It ended up being simple.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, I worked at this. So This podcast is just the beginning. This will probably end up being a book at one point on how to negotiate great real estate deals, right?
Sounds crazy.
So, anyways, you have 0 uncomfortable closing techniques that you have to use, that most listeners feel they need to employ, which makes most sellers feel like they need a shower after they leave, right?
Hmm.
When you're done, it's like, I mean, I've had coaching clients that were slicker. They made me feel squirmish.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were just. And what makes a salesperson slimy is the question. And the question is that they're acting.
Oh, right.
They're pretending to be your friend, and it's too zealous. It's too much. It's not a natural thing. It's not how you met your spouse or how you have a relationship with your children or your parents or your friends.
Mm.
It's too obvious. It's too overdone, right? And they agree to everything, right? There's no resistance, and there's no sharing ideas, and there's no, it just feels fake, right? And you don't need to do that. You don't need to be somebody's friend to buy their house. You don't need to do that. You don't need to build rapport to buy
Mm.
somebody's house,
Mm.
right? If you talk about the house enough and you talk about their problems and their stuff, then that's the rapport. That's what you need.
Sounds slightly more important than a baseball game or the weather.
Right. Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah. My kids do this and your kids do that. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, this methodology requires less talking, which is what I want to emphasize on today, is less
Hmm.
talking. And the less you talk, the more money you make.
Hmm.
And I'm not gonna pile onto that and get into that, but you're gonna notice that. In fact, Peter, if you could bring it up towards the end of the podcast to make sure that this is really what you got out of it, that would be helpful. Like, can you really talk less and make more money?
Mm.
Right? And that's what I noticed is the guys that are on mark and make a lot of money, they talk to sellers for 15, 20 minutes. Right? Now they might do it 2 or 3 times, but they're not talking to them for an hour and a half, right?
Hmm.
And just to be clear, Peter, why I'm doing this secret now, or these secrets, and why I'm pounding on this so hard right now is very simple. This is not an accident that this is happening now. This is not a random show. It is my life. That's why it's come about right now. And I'm going to tell you, it's because uh, I've been working on our new outbound AI robot
Hmm.
who will be dialing our leads, right? That
Yeah.
have received offers. So right now, just recently in the past 30 days, we have released in Creative REI Reply. We no longer just text your leads. In other words, we give you leads, we skip trace them, we put them in your account, and we put them in a campaign so that they could, used to be, so we would text them so they would make an appointment with you so you could talk to them and actually make an offer.
Hmm.
And we have a calculator and all the paperwork is done for you. It's just push button, right? And it really is incredible, and it really works. The reason why our software is so unbelievable and why I could brag about it so much is because we're going on about 3 years that we've been in existence.
Hmm.
And Sean and I, who are 2 of the 4 owners, we're the working owners. The other 2 are owners, but well, one of them does support, and the other one does all the software stuff, all the big stuff, right, and some of the marketing. But Sean and I, every Thursday night for 60 to 90 minutes, have to face our users on a support call. And we either help them with their technical challenges or we help them with their deal structuring. And obviously, you know which one does which. I do deal structuring, Sean does the other. So what's happened is it's kind of hard to go on to a Zoom call with 25 to 50 or 60 people on there and somebody's bashing your software because it's not working. It's kind of hard for me or for Sean to like swallow that. So I rest assure you, when that does happen, which it doesn't happen anymore, the following week it's fixed.
Yep.
It's fixed. And then we come back and we like brag about it. Like it's fixed. Like you ain't getting away with that again. Right.
Hmm.
So by virtue of doing that for almost 3 years, the software works really well because we interact a lot with our users and we know the bugs. And that's why and it's an accident that we did that. It wasn't planned that way. I will tell you, if I ever start another software company, that will be the catalyst of the launch is the support, right?
Oh yeah, that's important.
So by virtue of having to like train a robot instead of a human
Oh.
being, it warped my mind. You want to know why? Because it's been very enlightening for me just from the sense of a robot doesn't have emotions and continually ask a question to the seller. So whatever it is that I want, I can train the robot to do flawlessly. Where I'm so used to for a few decades training people and having them alter it or change it or miss a word or not ask it at the right question, ask the right question at the right time,
Mm.
right? So this has been a huge revealing uh, moment for me, right? For this, and it's really enlightened me on this new simple way to close deals from any level of creative real estate, whether you're a novice or pro. It actually puts everybody on the same playing field. I mean, imagine this: we give you leads for as low as I think 16 cents a lead, right? We put leads in your system, and we don't charge you to use our software. We just charge you for the leads.
Hmm.
And we give you all the software and all the coaching and the calculators and everything as a bonus for buying leads from us, right?
Hmm.
And it's incredible because we get these leads that people rave about. We got hundreds of testimonials of people talking about our leads and how good they are and how many deals they've made because of it, right? And we put a lead in your account, and now we take that lead and we go get a comparable, all behind the scenes. You don't even know this happening. We get a comparable for the property address. We get all the statistics, the bedrooms and baths and square footage, so you don't do any of that. The computer does it all. And then it puts it into our deal calculator and it generates an offer based on the numbers. And it generates this offer and then takes a picture of it and texts it to the person as a picture, as if I took a picture of my grandson and sent it to my wife. So there's no downloading, there's no weirdness on the receiving end of the text. You just open it and there's our offer. And now within a short period of time, we're going to have a robot say, I'm Bill's agent and I'm calling because, we sent you a text with an offer and we haven't heard from you. Like, can we talk? Or, we'll have a whole script of how that works. And if the person gets on the phone with them, the robot's going to go over the actual offer because it has all the numbers and it's going to put notes inside of the file so you can see them and then make an appointment for you to close them. Like, who's doing that? But I'm telling you, it's not so simple because somebody like me has to make these scripts.
Hmm.
And I mean, Sean and David have to deal with the technical stuff, which is hard enough, but it's like it really spun me in my tracks,
Oh, I'm sure.
right? So, my first point that I'd like to make today is I want to ask my listeners today this question. Actually, 4 questions, right?
Hmm.
One, are you clear about what you're doing when you talk to a seller? And I'll guarantee you that 90 something percent will say no. Right? So, are you clear about what you're doing when talking to a seller? Like, do
Hmm.
you have that bullseye? Is it clear in your head what you're supposed to get on every call?
Hmm.
And 2, do you struggle to get your way in life? Just in general, not even with real estate. Like, are you clear in life what you're doing? Right? I'm in the middle of reading a couple books right now. One of them is by Matheson. Matheson wrote the book. The first book I read of his, I think his first name is Michael. Uh, and actually, I think it's out of print because I had to buy it from a used bookstore, and I paid 40 or 50 bucks for the book.
Hmm.
But he's the guy that wrote Ready, Fire, Aim.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
He's a good author, right? So this was one of his early editions, and he talks a lot about there, like how the Confessions of a Millionaire, I think it's what it's called.
Uh-huh.
And it's 430 or 20 or 25 secrets. And the whole first part of the book is nothing more than just goal setting and execution. And I got to tell you, I've read a lot about that stuff. In fact, I find it very boring and mundane. But man, he's nailing it. I'm going to start doing it.
No
I
kidding.
have started doing it. Yeah, it's just incredible.
Wow.
It's incredible. But my point is that if you don't have a bullseye, then how do you know where you're going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second question is do you struggle getting your way in life? Are you getting what you want in life? Right? And the third question is do you have disdain or contempt for this thing called selling or being a salesperson?
Ooh. That's funny, but it's true. I know people like, boy, you say selling and they just
Bug out.
Oh man, no.
Yeah. Or number 4, do you think a sale is a give and take proposition where someone always loses?
Wow, that's a good question.
Right?
Yeah.
If you do, then this podcast is perfect for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that going on right now. Like, there's this whole mentality, if someone has money, he must have gotten it from you, and he stole it from you. If you don't have money, somebody took it. Or
Right.
there's like it's all oppositional instead of like, can we work together? It's just so stupid to me.
So, in my perspective, kind of really evaluating and invalidating our listeners right now, if you have any of these feelings, it's possible you're considered a total, absolute amateur, right? Which simply means someone who engages in a pursuit, study, science, sport, right, as a pastime rather than as a professional, or someone lacking in experience and competence, right? So I don't want to get into this, but there's a whole scale, right, on where you are and where you are and where you are as a salesperson and where the client is as a receiving end of that, right, the buyer. And when you get to the top of the scale, it starts at the top as interest, and right below that is desire. And for a very long time, we spoke on this podcast, like, how do you know that your seller is interested and not just a desire, right? So let me explain that real quick, which is not part of my podcast today, but I'm going to kind of do it anyways. Desire means you're wishing. Oh, I wish I could sell my house. It'd be kind of cool if I can sell my house. It'd be kind of cool if I can make 50 grand when I sell my house. It's a desire, it's a wish. It's like you're hoping, and you have very little faith. It's just kind of like well, I hope it happens. Where interest is much different. Interest is, oh, it's going to happen. I wonder how it's going to happen. You're interested in it and all the details and all the things that happen, right? So when you're dealing with someone, the way you have to evaluate the transaction that's happening between you and a seller or you and a buyer is who's doing all of the work. Are you doing all of the work and the seller's like cheering you on like a cheerleader? Or is the seller doing their part? And maybe not all of the work, but they're doing a lion's share of it and they're nudging you. Right? And that's how you know whether somebody's good or somebody's bad. So somebody's wishing or hoping that it could happen, they're at effect of the deal, and that's where they want to be. They're parked at effect. When they're at interest and they're participating, they're at cause. They're making it happen. Right? So when you're in transactions, you have to take a look at that, like who's doing all the work and why is that?
Sure.
right? And that's an indicator. We call it a tell, like in poker, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a tell. You blink your eye or you scratch your ear when you have a good hand, right? It's a tell. It's an obvious thing that you do at that point, right? So all this stems from your commitment and dedication, right? Plus endurance to figure things out, right? I mean, when I take on a coaching client, one of the things that I'm looking for is how much horsepower do they have? How much bandwidth do they have? By the way, bandwidth is how much time in your life are you putting aside to do this, right? Like I'm in the middle of reading a book right now, and I don't do this very often, but this book is so important to me that I actually got it on Audible, and I sit at my desk with everything turned off, with my door shut, and I actually read along. I listen to Audible and I read along in the book, and I make sure I don't have any misunderstoods or make sure I got the concepts, and I'm studying it. I'm not just reading it. I'm not just absorbing the data. I'm actually making it my own because it's that type of a book for me, right? It'll change my life and your lives. And this is and the reason why I say that, and I keep diverting today, is I don't go to Barnes and Noble and buy books. In fact, I don't even go to Amazon to buy books anymore. The only way that I read a book these days is while I'm reading a book, the author mentions another book.
Ah.
And I've just kind of like really gotten deep into some stuff I can't find anymore. Sometimes I have to go to eBay, or I got to go on Amazon used bookstores, and I got to look for it in used because they're out of print, but they're just amazing books, right? So, anyways, fortunately from you, I figured out what's holding you back, and can help you figure that out today.
Wow.
And I'm being arrogant, but I'm telling you, after my 32 minutes of kind of babbling here, I'm going to get down to business, right? So here's my unsolicited evaluation of why you are not making deals and not making enough deals, or making enough deals.
Okay.
First, we need to change your philosophy on what's the most important and basic thing you need to do with a seller.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, what's the purpose of being on the call? What is the bullseye for every seller? Right? So, questions are a key way we can peel back the onion and find out what's really going on with the seller. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It finds out their real problems and then build their vision of those problems. And we've learned through these podcasts that vision makes decision, right? But that's not really true.
Whoa.
It is true, but it's too steep of a gradient.
Oh.
You do it, but you don't do it till later on. So we're missing some of the basics.
Okay.
So here is why this is a slippery slope to be on. And I'm reading it because it took me all day to write this podcast, and I've carefully written it so that it could be clearly understood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Not that I'm smarter than it, but sometimes I have messy data in my head. Like I got shit bouncing around, and I need to like two-dimensionally write it out, right?
Sure.
And figure it out, right? So here's why this is a slippery slope to be on. Some questions provoke only yes or no answers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not interrogative, right? Or lead to questions that need some explaining or a longer answer.
Mm-hmm.
Is your house for sale? Yes.
Exactly. Wow.
Right.
Yeah. It's like when you talk to kids. How are you? Good. What's
Yeah.
your name? Johnny. How old are you? 5.
So let me emphasize your point, because I didn't think of that. Talking to a teenager.
Oh
Not
God.
kids.
I'm
Talking
sorry.
to a teenager.
I should have said teenager.
Yeah, because that's more explanative, right?
No,
It's like
wait,
talking to
Bill.
an angel.
Teenagers have one answer, and then they become millennials. It's like, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
What does that
millennials.
mean? Emma breaks my balls about that now because it's like, you want a drink? I'm good. What does that mean? She's like, Dad, you got to do this every time. I said, well, I didn't understand the question. I didn't understand the answer. I'm good. Does that mean I'm good? Like I have a drink and I want one later? I'm good. Does that mean that you're not thirsty? I'm good. And I go through like three or four, and she's like, Dad, I just don't want a drink right now. I'm like, okay, that was a good answer.
Yeah, it is extremely general and doesn't really explain what's going on. You just figure just leave them alone because why argue with them?
So I want you to understand this. I just want you to get the concept of this. I don't want you to go down a rabbit hole with this because I know
Yeah.
sometimes you do that. Okay. So you want to ask questions that don't get a yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how you do that. And you might want to write this down, but here's how you do that. It's usually done with who, what, when, where, why, how, and sometimes which.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
What is your asking price for the house? $299. Oh, how did you come up with that?
Mm-hmm.
Or where did you get that number? Or
Mm-hmm.
what made you think of that number?
Yeah.
See, it's the answer that provokes the whole conversation. It's the answer that gives us what we need. It's not the question. The question is put there as a compass. It's the compass that's guiding us through the deal, right? And if we find ourselves, going off in a wrong direction, we need to change the questions to get us back to the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
This is all going to make sense in a couple minutes because I'm being a little bit profound, but this is exactly where my head is at after all the stuff I told you, like training this robot, right? Okay, now for a revolutionary shakeup that most people do not do. The only way to make deals, creative real estate deals, extraordinary, gargantuan, huge deals, the biggest, fattest deals you can ever make in your life is to listen. Don't talk, listen. Right? I could tell you right now, my kids were teasing me the other day because we were out and we were talking about something. And they were teasing me because when they were teenagers, I don't even know how we got in this conversation. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the biggest thing that they remember when they were teenagers
Mm-hmm.
is me saying, "What's happening?"
Oh.
Right? And for the longest time, like when they were kind of growing through, I mean, they're in their 30s now, so they're kind of coming out the other end and they got kids and stuff like that. So it's not like that. But when my children, I don't hear from them in, 3 or 4 days, 5 days, a week, I'll call them up and say, "So what is it that I shouldn't know?" "What do you mean, Dad?" "Well, I haven't heard from you in 5 days. So what are you not telling me?"
Well,
And then I would just shut up. And sometimes the conversation would go on for 10 minutes.
I've heard you
You
say
see,
that. Do you still have to do that now?
I do it occasionally. Yeah. Once in a while, though, especially Emma. Emma's not a very good communicator. I mean, she's a great communicator when you're in front of her, but
Yeah.
she's a total geek introvert.
Yeah. She doesn't start the conversation necessarily.
Well, she does with me, but that's because I don't let her get away with not communicating to me, right? Now, you may think I'm crazy because it's too simple until I tell you what I considered listening is. So I've spent the last 2 decades teaching people what to say and never taught them how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
There is my mistake because there is me training the robot. I could get the robot to say anything, but why am I asking the robot to ask this question? What do I want to know?
Mm-hmm.
Because the robot will do anything I want. So if I had a magic wand, using my own words against me, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it over this conversation, what would I want to make a deal?
Hmm.
And this reflection or this mirror that I'm in right now is a little hard to swallow for me
Really? Why?
because I do it naturally. It's intuitive
Oh.
inside of me.
Yeah, well, teaching is the only way to really learn in the end, to really, really learn. And you're on both sides of that conversation when you're trying to train the robot. You're putting
Yeah,
yourself, you're in those two shoes, you're jumping back to the other two shoes,
yeah.
back and forth, and like it must have been nutty for you.
Well, and I'm still working on it, right? So not all answers to questions are made equal.
Hmm.
And this, Peter, I'm going to give you the most advanced, most simplest, most powerful thing that we'll get when I'm going to talk about for the next 20 minutes is what makes deals. I am absolutely 1,000,000% positively convinced this is the difference between me and you and me and my listeners.
Mm.
Because I do this and I didn't know, and I tried to explain it and explain it and explain it. And this is what took me most of the day to try to figure out.
Hmm.
Okay, so here we go.
Yep.
All answers are not equal. And this exact point is the difference between being broke and being a millionaire. Check this out. There are basically two types of answers you get from your questions. One is a vital problem or situation that is deeply concerning and grabbing all of your seller's attention. And it's not knowing the seller and it's grabbing their attention and it's not allowing the seller to continue or move forward until they handle this one thing first. So I'm going to say it again. Number one is a vital problem or situation that is deeply concerning and grabbing all of your seller's attention, and it's not allowing the seller to continue or move forward until they handle this one thing first.
So, do you mean just in the conversation or in his situation with a house, like his life?
Everything is this applies to everything in life, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about creative real estate right now.
Yeah,
Right?
but you mean just like in the conversation that we get lost because of this?
I don't understand your question.
Well, you're saying like the guy has like some kind of problem and he can't continue. Do you mean like when we're talking to him, like as if we would lose him at that point if we don't deal with that at this point, if we don't
Yeah,
find it?
so let me continue
Hmm.
because I don't think you should be asking that question. So let me continue and then I'm going to back up. So number two, remember there's only two types of answers. Number two is a comment or misdirector.
Mm.
Here is the main thing to understand about this response. It is an opinion or reaction or complaint. So the first thing is a vital problem or situation that is deeply concerning and grabbing all of your seller's attention and not allowing the seller to continue or move forward until he's handled this deal, this thing first.
Hmm.
So is he going to move forward on selling you his house until he gets an answer to that thing?
Apparently not.
It's really bothering him. It's like got him consumed, right?
Hmm.
Where the second one is just a comment or a misdirector. It's not real. It's just it's the here's the main thing to understand about this response. It's an opinion, a reaction, or a complaint. Now, let me move on. Let me get it all out and then we'll chat about it, right?
Hmm.
A fact, a fact is an observable event, right? A fact is observable and can be seen easily.
Hmm.
An opinion is what someone thinks, but doesn't have visual or correct visual observation. Right? Or a way to back it up. In other words, it's not a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So basically what we're looking here at is the difference between number one answer and number two answer to the question is number one answer has evidence.
Mm-hmm.
It has something you can see. I'm behind on my mortgage. How much? Oh, I don't know, $6,000. Which answer is that? One or two?
It sounded vague.
So I just want to know which answer it was.
I mean, it sounds like number one, like he actually answered, but the way he said it sounded like it wasn't sincere. So it sounded more like an opinion. So I wouldn't trust it the way he said it.
So did you hear what you just did by accident? I asked you one answer and you said it sounded vague. You didn't answer my question, so I asked it again.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer to the question is, which one was it? It was number two.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving you his opinion of what he thinks he's behind on his mortgage.
Hmm.
So do I move on from that point or don't I?
No, and it's almost subtle because you're not talking about the words, you're talking about the whole experience. Like he gave you an answer. Now, if that was on a piece of paper and he said $6,000, you go, okay, thanks. But you heard him say, you go, well, wait a minute.
Okay, so let me do it again. So if I said to him, and I'm saying him is just mankind in general. I don't mean, I'm not, like.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So,
hey,
anyways,
let's not get worried about that. Gender's got
yeah.
nothing to do with this. Let's go
Okay.
on.
So if I said to him, how much are you behind on your payment? I'm behind 3.5 months. Okay, good. How much is your payment? It's $13.52 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you can now take $13.52 times 4 because he's 3.5 payments behind times 4. So let's do that. $13.52 times 4 is $5,400 and $5,408.
Mm-hmm.
Did he answer your question?
Sounds like it this time.
It's evidence. The next question I would ask is do you have a current mortgage statement so I could see it?
Sure.
You see the difference in those conversations? Because now, even though the numbers were close here, which I didn't mean to do that, but if he says, oh, it's $6,000 behind, and then you continue with the conversation, what's going to happen? His opinion's going to come back at some point and blow up on you. Especially if you're using the deals and you want to make him an offer, your offer is going to be off.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So number two is a statement or a remark or a complaint about something. It's a statement, a remark, or a complaint about how many times investors call him. It's a statement, a remark, or a complaint about realtors. It's a statement, a remark, a complaint about the market. It's a statement, it's a complaint, or a remark about the bank. Right? Often they're just being critical.
You know what I'm getting from what you're saying? None of that stuff actually has anything to do with the deal in front of you. The market, the bank, well, fine. The realtor, fine. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Let's just get back. What about this deal right in front of us?
Exactly. You're
right?
looking for evidence because just like a detective on a crime scene, you're looking for evidence because otherwise you might prosecute the wrong person.
Right, but I think the worst thing, though, which you're probably going to say anyways, but I just spotted something. If you talk about those things, you're losing the deal. You're not talking about the deal. You talk about the realtors that the banks, the mortgage.
Or you call me up and text me and say, I got this deal. They're motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, they're motivated because you promised him all the wrong things. Because this is why I say all sellers are liars. Because they're giving you opinions and you're accepting them. Now watch this, ready?
Yep.
So we boil this whole seller conversation down to some very simple and usable $1 million making differences. So you have to know the difference between answer 1 and answer 2. So here we go. I have 4 points here. And as like Mr. Connor says, this is a writer downer. So 1, ask questions to pull from the seller. So you want to keep your questions kind of on, and I would just keep a little index card. I would put it on your computer. I would put it in front of you with these words on it. It's not, these are not something that you have to put into, it's just something you need to know when you're tearing down or interrogating, and interrogating is a bad word, but you're looking for an answer. You want to have these in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So number 1, ask questions to pull from a seller: who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. So I'll say it again: who, what, when, where, why, how, and which. You want them to answer those questions so you could figure out if it's an opinion or a fact. Well, all the houses in my neighborhood sell for $500,000. That's a generality. It sounds like an answer. Well, how did you come up with $500,000? Well, all the houses in my neighborhood sell for $500,000. The neighborhood is worth $500,000. Oh, okay. So what would you ask there?
Which house?
Yeah, right. Give me the one that did. Which one sold for that? Do you have the addresses? Let me look them up.
Yeah. So is why a question, or is that not one that you want to do here?
Why are you selling for $500,000?
Okay.
Why are you selling right now?
Yeah.
You see, so the script is the script. This doesn't change the script. All this is doing is, if the script stops flowing or it stalls or you're not getting anywhere, you need to dig in deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2, when a seller answers you, you must only accept factual answers, factual type answers. Answers that have evidence to back up their answer. And this is probably the most vital part that we don't do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to sell by June 15th. Why? Because my granddaughter is going to graduate from high school and I want her to stay until then.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to change that? No.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another one. I want to sell by June 15th. How come? Well, because I think I'm going to have a new house to buy by then.
Ah. I think.
I plan on having my new house purchased by then.
Okay.
Here's another one. We're in probate with my mother, and I think it'll be over by then, and I want to move in the house. Sounds like a good answer, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it keeps saying I think and maybe by I hope.
Okay, so let's say the probate. Okay, so so that now that's a trigger point. This is a deal trigger. I was talking about this in podcast number 459, right? 449, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a deal trigger. Okay, so have you filed probate? Yes. Where did you file it? Oh, in this city. Okay, so can I go there and see where you guys have gone through the file? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this? You see the difference because I didn't get a factual with evidence response.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fine. It's not pinpointed.
Yep.
Number 3, if the answer is not a fact, can't be proven, or can't see any evidence, it's an opinion. And you should acknowledge the seller so they know so they know you received their answer.
Mm-hmm.
You understood it. You can't just just acknowledge them and they don't feel like they've been understood, because somebody that talks too much doesn't feel like they're being understood, so they keep talking so they feel like they're understood, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you would say something like, I understand, or I'm tracking with you, or just plain old, I got it.
Mm.
That makes sense. I could see how that would be. Any one of those acknowledges. So they're giving you an opinion. You could say, I could see how that would be. Right? So let's give you a little example here. So I want to be out by June 5th. I want the deal to be done by June 15th.
Right.
Okay. So the reason why do you want to be out by June 15th? Well, because we're in probate with my mother, and I want to live in her house, and I think we'll be done by then, and I'll be able to move in.
Mm.
I understand that. See, I acknowledge you. I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Next question is, what happens if it doesn't happen?
Exactly.
Right? Or you could just say, okay, so when do you want to be out by? June 15th. But what happens if that doesn't, what you know what I mean? So it just, my point is that you just hit a deal trigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's the situation that they're trying to solve. So when I told you, let me see here. Let me go back to my notes. Number 1 is a vital problem or situation that is deeply concerning and grabbing all of your seller's attention and is not allowing the seller to continue or move forward until they handle this one thing first. So if you say let's close tomorrow, what are they going to do?
Right.
You need to handle that June 15th objection. It's a real, actual thing.
Sure. And there's more than just one of these in a deal, then, isn't there? It's not just you handle one thing and everything is fine. There's a number of tripwires then.
It could be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happens. So we're on number 3. If the answer is not a fact, can't be proven, doesn't have evidence, it's an opinion, and you should acknowledge the seller so they know that you received their answer and understand it. Like, I understand, I'm tracking with you, or just I got it, makes sense to me, any one of those. Then once you acknowledge them so they feel like you understand them, you go back to the original question that you asked, usually on your script, and you ask it again because you did not get an answer. You didn't get the facts. You didn't get the evidence. And you ask it again and again and again until you get the actual truth or evidence of why they're saying that answer. Now, this may sound like, oh my God, I'm going to sound like a jerk because I keep asking the question over and over again, right? But they may not even know themselves. They're working it out in their head, trying to give you an answer. It's like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to help them. It's like therapy, right?
Yep.
So by repeating the question or repeating the concept or trying to drill down and peel back the onion so you could get to their true reason, what, and peel it back so you can find what's ruining them or destroying them at this part in the seller's life, you don't have it. You have to have a fact with observable evidence. Otherwise, you miss it. And I'm not even saying that the seller's doing this to you intentionally. It's just human nature. It's just because the details are what makes deals. Number 4, now that you've done 1 through 3, you circle the wagon around this major hurdle or problem, pinning the seller from moving on. First question, second question we ask. Let's go through the script. First question is, do you have the time to talk about 123 Main Street? Yes, I do. Is it still for sale? That's where we're at right now. You circle the wagon around the major hurdle or problem, pinning the seller down from moving on. It's still for sale. That right there is the exact question that you need to circle your wagons around. Why is it still for sale? What about this deal allows it to be on the market for 45 days? What is the seller creating or doing or making buyers upset about that they aren't making the right offers and they're not injecting into a deal? Or is the seller not answering the phone? Is the seller asking too much money? Is the neighborhood bad? Is the house dysfunctional? The second question is the beginning of our discovery and our interrogatory. The house is still for sale, and you need to figure out why. And the only way you could do that is to ask a couple quick questions and know the difference between a factual answer and an opinion. It's the only way you'll do it. Once you figure out what's pinning them down and what's really causing this house not to sell by circling the wagons, when I say circle the wagons around it, it's like everything else goes away and the conversation centers around this one reason why the house is not sold. End of story. You don't care about bedrooms. You don't care about the weather. You don't give a shit about anything else except why didn't this house sell? What is the seller doing wrong? And then you go into help mode by talking about your proposal that could help them solve those issues that they're running into. Because they have them. The house is still for sale. Why? My agent. The neighborhood. No open houses. They say that the garage is out of zoning. Blah, 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 blah. You have been summoned to this deal to fix that problem. End of story. But it's a factual problem because I went to the zoning board and I looked at the zoning charts and I noticed that it was 3 feet off their property and into somebody else's property. And they can't sell this deal because 3 feet of the garage is in the property and the realtor's telling them to tear down the garage. Instead of going to planning and zoning and get a special meeting and getting a encumbrance, I'm not going to get into that, but getting the zoning so that it could allow the neighbor to let you keep their garage there. The neighbor allows you to keep the garage there. Realtor can't do that. Now I'm giving an extravagant reason why they can't sell. But the second or third question, how long have you been selling the house for? Now you go into your who, what, where, when, why, how. Which,
Mm-hmm.
what have you been doing to try to sell a house? It starts right there. That's why the question's there. Whose name is on the deed? You see?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying you spend 20 minutes on this. I'm just saying that's a deal trigger right there. Is the house still for sale? Yes. Now, how long have you had it on the market? Oh, 4 days. Then in that case, you're like, you move on.
Hmm.
In fact, anything below 30 days is no attention. But if it's over 30 days, you start asking questions. Have you gotten any offers? What happened with those offers? This is what I do in my mind when I'm talking to people, which to me seems so simple. And it's taken me a decade to give you this podcast and articulate what I'm thinking when I'm talking to a seller, because I've had so many people say, "What are you thinking when you're talking to a seller?" And I've tried to answer that question dozens of times. And it's a severe lag on my answer, but here's my answer. You go into help mode by talking about your proposal, which should be a way that is more valuable than money to your seller. I could fix that zoning problem. You can. Yeah, I could fix that probate problem. You can.
Yep.
I could get you the 20 grand you need for the down payment on your next house. You can. It's not about the money. It's your value to help them get unstuck and move on. This is like, let's go back to 1920 with a Model A Ford in the middle of a storm, right?
Yeah.
And they're in the backwoods and they're driving from one house to another house because the mother and father were working in the country store and they got to get home to the kids. And they're driving down the road and all of a sudden they can't drive anymore because a big tree fell in the middle of this dirt road and they can't move anymore. And then you come along because you're from the 2000s. You say, "Hey, man, I got a chainsaw. Give me a second." And you cut a hole in the log and you let their Model A Ford go through. That's what you're doing. Now, here's the exact difference between a real estate millionaire and broke people. Not knowing the difference between a fact with evidence and an opinion. The answers are not evaluated and not calculated correctly. And the major points of the deal are missed because they are not calculated or evaluated correctly by the entrepreneur or by the investor. And this is the only difference between millionaires and broke people. This is the difference between making deals and not making deals. The only difference. There is no other than the obvious. You got to have leads and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about in conversations. This is what will take your conversion rate from 0% to 40%. And going down a deep, dark rabbit hole, answering and explaining how you can solve all their opinions and never having actual facts or evidence. In other words, you do not have a bullseye that you could hit with your seller because they keep moving the target when they're giving you opinions.
Right. If it's not factual, they'll just find other excuses. And that's one of the ways you can tell somebody's not really being straight with you, because they change I can't sell the house because I don't want to sell the house because it's all these different things. Like you catch a kid with a cookie, in his pocket. He comes up with all these excuses until you get the real answer. Then it's done.
Opinions are moving targets, which is why I say they are misdirectors and complaints. They're complaints. The seller is complaining about something they don't like. This is back where we're at desire and understanding. They're desiring to sell the house. They wish they could sell the house, but they're not really serious about it. When they get to interest, they're really serious about it and they start solving problems. Right? If you help a seller solve an opinion, something else pops up, like you just said, and they can't do it. So the target keeps moving, and it wears you out because there's no correct answer. You can't give them an offer that will give them a solution. And now you're hours or days or months into a deal that was what I call mental masturbation. You were playing with yourself in your head, thinking that this seller is interested and they're motivated when they weren't. Because number one, you didn't get evidence and facts so you could actually help them in a therapeutic type session, because they may not know. And they're giving you all these, oh yeah, by the way, where do opinions come from most of the time? Other people. A lot of times you're going to find out these things they're telling you are what they've been told by a realtor, by a lawyer, by people that are not us, that have the tools and the technology that we have as creative real estate investors. Right? And misdirectors take you away from your real question getting answered. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Peter, are you hungry? Until you say yes, everything else is an opinion or non-factual. It's a misdirector. Right? You need to get the answers to your questions to do deals. And if they're not factual, backed by evidence, you can't give a good offer that will impact your seller's situation so they can remove the barriers and move on. You need to be that guy that's on that dirt road in the middle of a storm for that guy and wife driving the Model T Ford. You need that guy with a chainsaw, because that's how I see it in my head. Our technology is so far advanced and so unbelievable that that's what it's like. We are years ahead of ourselves, decades ahead of ourselves with technology right now and creative real estate, or at least in my group we are. And I'm bragging about that because I work very hard to do that. I work endless days and weeks and months to do this. And I'm very proud of that. And if you think I'm being arrogant, you're in the wrong podcast, because I am being arrogant.
No, you should. Well, you're being confident. You should be, because I've seen you do the work. I haven't seen all of it, but I know. I hear you doing it.
So I know that we're 13 minutes past the hour. I just want to drop this one thing here because Peter has a fantastic question that we should not skip over. It should be in the script, but it's not. And I should change that well, we did change it and then I changed it back. But here's the question. You should ask this very early on. What's more important to you? Selling a house or getting your price? Selling a house quickly or getting your price? Do I have it right, Peter?
No.
Okay. What is it?
Right. It says, what's more important to you, getting your asking price or making more profit?
There you go. Okay. And that's one of those questions that you can drill down on the who, what, where, when, how, which. It's a perfect question for that.
So now I have a question for you at the end of our podcast. Sorry for the extra minute, folks, but we've always said we're looking for a motivated seller. From what you're saying today, would it be more accurate to say we're looking for the motivation in the seller?
Yeah.
Because we could have a motivated seller and completely miss, because you don't ask, and miss it, or find the motivation.
So the true motivation. So here's the deal. Every seller is motivated to sell a house.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't put it up for sale if they weren't motivated. What the difference is are they motivated to do what we are proposing to them to do? Are they motivated to one of my 7 strategies that we use?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that we could find that out is to do what we spoke of today, is to get the facts and the evidence and not the opinions, and know the difference between the two, so we could truly, honestly help them. Because I cannot emphasize enough, I wish there was a statistic for this, but I've not found it, that a vast majority of people don't want to use the realtor system, because the only way the realtor system can help them is they get money, and money is not always their problem. It's the 13th of the month. I've been relocated, and I have to be at my new job in my new house on the 1st of the next month. Our realtor cannot handle that. Money does not matter there.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. And those people are the ones that you're looking for. That's low-hanging fruit. But when you start doing what I explained to you today, you will be amazed at what people tell you while you have them in your therapy session. Deal triggers are vital to you making deals. And today, even though I've gone an hour and 16 minutes, I think I've nailed it on the point of how you do that. Now, we could do many more podcasts after this, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe I'll write a book, maybe I won't. But the point is, knowing the difference between your answers is what makes you a millionaire in real estate and anything. All right, so I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please make sure you like us wherever you're watching us or seeing us. Make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you either go into the description and click on the link and grab your newsletter subscription, or go to creativerealestatedealology.com/subscribe and get your free subscription, because every Saturday morning I send out a newsletter with this kind of stuff in it. In the beginning, the first 13 episodes is training on how you would do which deal first and why you would do that. And then after that, we will use podcasts like this to start writing newsletters, so you can get a shorter version of what we just spent an hour and 20 minutes talking about. Okay? So make sure you go sign up for that. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you on podcast number 450. Flourish and prosper. Have a good week.